See all this potential, and I see it squandered. God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives.
This is something we have to care about. We have to wake up.
It is an immutable law of the universe that if you give government power, it uses it.
The terrorists who threaten our existence, to show that we will confront the tyrannies and dictatorships and terrorists who put our way of life at risk.
A world where freedom itself is under attack. Who attacked our country? The terrorist organizations to plot evil and destruction.
Yes, we can.
Jesus Christ, wake up, bloody wake up!
Hello, thanks for joining us. Today we've got an interview with Mark Devlin. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Really appreciate the time out you've taken to join us today. And to start things off, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself for the people who may never have heard of you before?
Well, in a nutshell, I've been a DJ for the last 23 years. Got started in 1990. I've been a radio and club DJ. I've been fortunate enough to travel to over 40 countries all over the world. And I've done radio shows on various different stations. I've written for different magazines. I've always been a music fan. I was into music as a kid. Bought my first record when I was 5. And in the early years, it was just a case of listening to pop music, whatever was in the charts. Sunday night bath times were very responsible for shaping my love of music, because that's when the chart was on Radio 1, 5 till 7 on a Sunday. And when I was a small kid, my mum always used to give me a bath when that was on, and we had the radio on in the bathroom. And I remember just getting really interested in pop music of the time. And in my teenage years, I decided that I really wanted to be a DJ. And by that point, my musical tastes were getting more finely tuned. And I was getting into what you would broadly term black music of the time. So that was early hip-hop and soul, funk, reggae, that sort of thing. This would have been the mid to late 80s. And so a bit of hustling, a few struggles, didn't really know how to get involved to start with. But by 1990, I'd got a job on a local radio station in Oxford, and that kind of springboarded a DJing career, and I eventually got into clubs and started doing all of that. So through the 90s, I had an absolutely fantastic time. The 90s was definitely my decade. Absolutely loved life. The DJ career had taken off. I was doing clubs all over the place, and I was just loving everything about it. Loving being in clubs, just loving being a part of the scene, loving being on record company mailing lists and getting exclusive tunes and, you know, all of that. And I was into the hip-hop and the New Jack Swing and the hip-hop soul that was around at that time. And in the 90s, you know, that was stuff like Mary J. Blige and SWV, R. Kelly.
And it was really great stuff.
Oh, the real deal, yeah. TLC, all that good stuff. And then on the hip-hop side, it was like the emergence of Wu-Tang Clan, and Notorious B.I.G., Tribe Called Quest, Gang Starr, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, all that good stuff, Naughty by Nature. Yeah. And I noticed as time progressed, as the 90s turned into the 2000s, I noticed that the music was changing a lot, and in my view, not for the better.
Yeah.
I just noticed that in hip-hop, lyrical content had crept in, which was all about glorifying materialism. It was all about champagne and shiny suits and Gucci shoes and, flash cars and champagne and all of that.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the way that the lyrics were going in hip-hop, and also the production styles were changing as well. Through the 90s, you had a lot of sample-based hip-hop, so they'd take an old soul tune or a James Brown tune or something and just sample the hook and a vocal sample, and it just made for a really great production style. And that was starting to change. In the noughties, you were getting all these corny sort of artificial beats being made, and I didn't really like the way it was going.
So generic now.
Yeah. But the early 2000s, I just kind of went with it, as all my peers did, all my DJ friends did. We just kind of kept with it. But things had reached the point by 2008, really, where I'd noticed that things had changed so much that the music that was masquerading as hip-hop bore absolutely no relation to everything that had gone before, and certainly no relation to the original essence of hip-hop and what it was when it first emerged. And by that point, you had a bunch of real corny-ass artists coming through, like Flo Rida and T-Pain and Pitbull and Lil Wayne, and to me, these just weren't proper artists, and yet they were being put out there by the labels and presented as credible hip-hop artists.
Yeah.
They were getting played in hip-hop clubs, and they were getting rotation on MTV and on supposedly urban music radio stations. And by that point, I was just starting to ask a lot of questions about what's going on, and why are all the records sounding the same? They're all talking about materialism, just real vacuous nonsense, just being in a club and girls with fat asses and just nothing, no message, nothing meaningful in the music. And also, round about 2008, there was this merging of hip-hop and R&B and so-called urban music with dance music, basically house music.
Yeah.
The records were all very fast, so about 130 BPM, and it was impossible to distinguish between what would have been called a house record, the average David Guetta tune, for instance, with Akon on it, and what would be an R&B tune, Flo Rida and Pitbull, which to a lot of people is R&B. To me, it's just straight garbage.
Have you heard the new Nelly song, that Hey Portia one?
Unfortunately, yeah.
And it's like, oh, what are you doing? And
I didn't manage to avoid that one.
And it was like when Ludacris was on Justin Bieber's song. It's like these are like, they used to be respectable rap artists, and now they've just gone off the spectrum with this garbage.
Yeah, really. I mean, to me, the two biggest disappointments are Busta Rhymes and Snoop Dogg, who are just pathetic corporate puppet stooges now. Pull their strings and watch them dance. Yeah. What song would you like? What would you like me to sing next, sir? These two artists first started out as very credible rappers. Snoop Dogg's first album, Doggy Style, was incredible, although a lot of that is down to production by Dr. Dre, which was very much of its time. And Busta Rhymes he is an incredibly gifted rapper, but the sort of rubbish that they're parading him on now, just is humiliating, to be honest. It's humiliating to him, and it's degrading and humiliating to black people and to black artists, and it's just a bloody joke. Those two artists in particular are just testament to how artists are just being utilised now and exploited, and how much the game has changed.
It's like to become a credible artist, you've got to sell out, haven't you, really? You can't...
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't be yourself. And have you ever read the book, Hitmen, the Power Brokers in the Music Business?
I've read excerpts from it, and I've heard all about it, yeah.
Yeah, because I read that a few years ago, because I love music. And I hate how it is at the minute. And I investigated, why is it like this? And this book was recommended, and I read it, and it runs up to the early 90s, which was before any of it even happened. They thought it was bad then, but now it's just terrible. And what's happened is all the individual labels that was making the music, they've all been bought up, haven't they, by a big label would buy the smaller one, but now all the labels are under, I think it's only 3 companies now.
Well, last I heard it was 4, yeah, but it's consolidation, yeah. All these individual labels with their individual styles and character have all been swallowed up by these big monolithic corporations. Same thing's happened in radio. You used to have radio stations with their individual spirit and their individual vibe. I used to do a show on Galaxy in Bristol, which started out as an independent station, and then it got swallowed up by the Chrysalis radio network. And you used to have Kiss FM in London, and then they formed this Kiss conglomeration where they bought up stations in Manchester and Newcastle and Leeds. And what's happened in the radio industry is indicative of what's happened in the music business as well, where you've just got a handful of corporations. And when that happens, all these individual outlets just lose all their soul and all their decision-making ability, and they become just a corporate clone, and it's ugly and just disgusting.
Because in that book, the big theme of the book is payola, where it'd be promoters of, the songs, and they'd be paying DJs, they'd be bribing the DJs basically to play their records.
Yeah.
But now, payola, I think it's still illegal, but it's, when you own the radio stations and the TV channels and the music companies, then it's all a big package, really, innit? You can just make it, play it, even though it's rubbish, and then people will buy it. That's what they do.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, it works. That's the worst thing.
Well, it's clear to see that this is a long-standing agenda that was obviously planned a long time ago to consolidate all these companies. They wanted to get to a situation where only a controlled handful of artists are having all the hits, and they've got that, particularly with the US mainstream industry.
Yeah.
There's about 20 to 25 names, really, that are having all the hits, and when you step outside of those artists, you don't see any others getting radio airplay and rotation on TV and selling out concerts and all that sort of thing. And there's no accident, it's no accident that these 25 names are where they are and who they are, because they're the ones that they've chosen to control in absolutely every way, and they're the ones that are serving out this agenda and helping to shape and mould people's perceptions and controlling their minds and brainwashing them.
Yeah,
and it's all down to these artists that they control in absolutely every way.
And to me, the biggest shame is like, for me, music's an essential part of life. It enriches your life, and there's these kids growing up now, and they're listening to this music, and they think that it is music.
Yeah, they think that's where it's at because it's all they've known.
Yeah,
they've got nothing to compare it to.
And then, but when there's such actual real music out there, like I love Motown, me. I can't get enough of Motown, and like there is going to be none of that now. For the future. Like there is music out there, but you have to really, really find it, and it's difficult to do that.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgraceful. We got this story, just going back to hip hop specifically. There's this story which was all over the hip hop press a couple of years ago of this insider from the music industry who has remained anonymous. And a lot of people have claimed that this is a hoax, similar to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And whenever any riveting information like this comes along, a lot of people try and call it out as a hoax. But to give it the benefit of the doubt, there's this insider from the music industry that was employed by one of the big corporations who says that he was called to a meeting in the early 90s. I think he says it was 1991. And there were a bunch of executives present from all the big music corporations of the time. And they had a representative there of the US prison industrial complex, the prison industry, basically. And he was talking to these executives of these record companies and encouraging them to shape and mould their artists and the output that would appear on their labels to a certain agenda, which was getting all these rap artists to talk about guns and violence and just all this kind of slack gun talk on track. And the idea was to, over quite a short period of time, shape and mould and brainwash the minds of young black males predominantly that would be listening to this music to make them think that this kind of lifestyle is one that they should be pursuing.
Yeah,
they're from the hood and they should be selling drugs, they should be living life in the fast lane, running guns, toting guns the whole time. And the idea was, he said, to get as many young black males committing misdemeanors and crimes as possible so that they could all be locked up and they could be feeding the prison industry and basically keeping the prison industry going, which is reliant upon a constant stream of young male offenders. And I've not got any reason to doubt that this was genuine, because you can look at the way the music changed from that point on. So-called gangster rap, you know, it's the era of that so-called label. But I didn't see it at the time. I didn't want to see it at the time. I was very much into hip hop, and I loved all the music of the 90s. But looking back on it now, with the benefit of hindsight, and with a bit of maturity, and you know, with an open mind, I've got no reason to doubt that that was the case. The record industry was working hand in hand with the prison industrial complex to shape and mould the music, to brainwash young males so that they could end up in prison.
I touched upon that on my last radio show, because what the songs do now is they glorify that life. But the only difference is that in real life you don't get a multi-million-pound recording contract. You get caught and sent to jail.
Well, that's right. There's also this incredible story of earlier this year of this young, struggling, up-and-coming rapper, wannabe, who apparently killed his best friend. Did you hear about this one?
Yeah, I did.
Because he wanted to join the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Because there's been so much talk now of the Illuminati, these secret societies which control the music industry, the entertainment industry, and every other aspect of our lives. And there's so much awareness of this idea, this myth, or this meme, whatever you want to call it, that this up-and-coming rapper thought that what you have to do to become elevated to the upper level of the industry and appease the Illuminati bosses that run things is to make a human sacrifice. Because there's been stories of these big rappers, you know, Jay-Z and Kanye and all the rest of them, having to make sacrifices of people close to them in exchange for fame and fortune. And so this deluded fool killed his best mate, thinking, oh, this'll get me in with the big boys. Absolutely incredible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And speaking on this subject, you might not have heard of it, not many have. There's a thing called New Order of Barbarians. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
You should really look into it. What it is, it's you can listen to the audio tapes, or it's a transcript. And what it is, it's a doctor. It's from 1988, and it's a doctor who says he attended a lecture in 1969, I think it was. And it was a gathering of paediatricians, you know, doctors.
Yes. Dr. Richard Day. I've actually got a quotation from that meeting here. And Dr. Richard Day, it was a Rockefeller Foundation Planned Parenthood meeting, 20th of March 1969, and this guy was outlining to all these other doctors that were present, who were obviously part of the kind of secret society network,
that's the one.
All the changes that were planned in society for the coming decades. And the one quote that resonates so much with me is when he said, "Pornography, violence and obscenity on TV and in movies will be increased. People will be desensitized to violence and porn and made to feel life is short, precarious and brutish. Music will get worse and will be used for indoctrination." That was said in 1969, and I would say he was right on the money.
Yeah, that's exactly the one, yeah.
Yep.
Because people can question it if it's real or not and all the rest of that, but all you have to do is, even from 1988 perspective, look at it now to when it was, and he's right. He is right, in my opinion.
He said music will get worse. Who's going to disagree with that?
Yeah, you'd have to be an idiot to disagree with that. But have you looked into all of it? Because I think it's about 2 hours long. But there's everything from, contraception, the pill. He says that'll come into play, but that was before it was around. And he mentions about homosexuality and how that'll become legal and the new normal.
Yep.
And I don't have anything against homosexuals, but that he's saying it'll be like increased. And if you look at TV now, on the sitcoms and things like that, there's a lot of camp men, isn't there?
Well, yeah, it's all part of an agenda. The idea is to promote homosexual lifestyles and, camp kind of effeminacy as the norm. And like you, I've got absolutely no problem with homosexuals. If people want to live their life that way, who the hell am I to judge them? Absolutely fine with me. Do what you want. But there is an agenda, and part of it is breaking up the family unit.
Yeah,
and
this is what it says in it as well, yeah.
Exactly, that's part of the writings from that particular meeting as well. The long-term agenda has been to try and break up the concept of the family unit so that importance is no longer placed on children growing up with a mother and father that are always there in the home. The idea is to promote open, free sexual relationships, to promote divorce as something that's absolutely fine. Cohabitation without marriage is something that's absolutely fine. And of course, that's been going on ever since 1969. And you've got so many broken homes now. You've got so many shack-ups, as I call them, which is where, a male and female will get together and live together for a bit, see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, one of them just clears off. There's no paperwork that they're tied to. There's no reason why they've got to stick together. And, again, people can live their lives the way they want. It's not for me or anyone else to judge. But I do feel that it's had an effect on the values that children have grown up with in terms of what home life is all about and what stable relationships are all about and what sexual relationships are all about. And it all ties in together when you look at the lyrical content of music and when you look at the sort of stuff that's been going into TV shows and movies and when you look at all the changes in society that have been promoted and loosened up and allowed, the results speak for themselves, really.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of talk about the vibrations and things like that and emotions. And in my views, I don't know what your opinions are on this, but I think there's people out there that know a lot more than there's in the public arena, do you know, about that? Like the positive thinking type thing, and like I think people are made like fear-mongering, everything's fearful, and it brings people down to keep them at a lower level, I think.
Well, absolutely, yeah. We live in a culture of fear. Everything is fear. You turn on the evening news and they highlight all the stories that are supposed to make you feel afraid.
Yeah.
Use words like terrorism and have everyone at home thinking, oh my God, are we safe? Are my kids safe at school? Then they go on about economic crashes and financial situations. So you think, oh my God, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be able to pay my mortgage next month? Everything is fear.
And I found this the other day though, like, for my radio show, I look through, the daily news. And I realised that there's so many reportings, in every paper and websites and stuff like that, of just freak accidents, and of death. It's always death.
Yeah, and mothers killing their kids, because they can't cope,
and
so they take their kids with them. There's been so many stories like that in the news recently.
And the outlook that's normal news is normal to us, like, and why is that? That shouldn't be normal news.
Well, if that's all the news,
acceptable.
If that's all the news you ever get exposed to, then your worldview is going to be that this is,
the normal thing,
a fearful world, and you've got reason to be worried the whole time. And oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? There is a whole load of great things that still go on in the world, but we don't hear about it on the news because they're very selective about the sort of news that they bring you. But yeah, you're absolutely right. What they want is a fear-based society. They want everyone living in low-frequency vibration because it's a food source to the system that is controlling us. And we can go outside of this physical world when we talk about that and go into other realms of existence and other dimensions and other entities. That's something for another podcast, but there's many authors and researchers that you'll find that talk about that. The real power source here and the real controllers of what's going on in this world are not necessarily of this world. But even just staying with this physical realm, they want everyone afraid. They want everyone resonating a very low frequency vibration. You're easier to control that way. You're easier to brainwash. It keeps you in your place, and it keeps you on that corporate treadmill, and it keeps you as a cog in the system, doing what you're supposed to do, just being a slave, because that's what people are, they're slaves. If only people would understand the effect of raising their personal frequency of vibration. These are buzzwords that we're hearing so much now, because so many people are getting aware of what it's all about, frequency, vibration, but that really is what it's all about. Everything is made up of energy resonating at different frequencies of vibration, and the more you raise your vibration, the more you access higher levels of consciousness, and you go into a different realm of existence, which is much more difficult to control.
Yeah,
you
feel
discover
different.
you discover your true self, your true nature, and you really gain empowerment in your life, and you shape and mould your own reality and your own truth.
Because I mentioned the Bilderberg Festival. When I was around them people, that was similar to me. Everyone felt different. There was each person said it. We feel different than normal.
Yeah.
And it was because you were surrounded by that energy of them people.
Yeah, really. You're pooling you're pooling your energy with theirs, your vibration with theirs. And when everyone is sort of consciously aware, and everyone has gone through the process of letting go of fear and letting go of what other people might think of them, which is the biggest kind of fear of all that controls people's lives, then you find yourself in a different vibrational arena. And when there's lots of like-minded people all pooling that positive consciousness together at the same time, the effects are incredible. So imagine that amplified throughout the entire population of a country or the world, vast numbers of like-minded people that have woken up and raised their vibration and have figured out what's going on and have refused to be caught in that low-density trap of fear and slavery.
Yes.
You could change the world overnight, literally. I'm not even being metaphorical there. And that is the only way that we're going to undo this control system that's been enslaving us for so long, because you can't dismantle it brick by brick. You can't do that physically. It's so far advanced because it's been going on for so long. They've had so many, not even hundreds, but thousands of years to shape and mould the system that we now see, that you could never dismantle it. But what you can do is overwrite it with a new level of consciousness. And when you do that, old ways of doing things and old scenarios can no longer manifest because they're not in the right frequency range anymore. The frequency range has risen, and all these old ways of doing things can't keep up with it. So you can overwrite reality and change the world overnight.
It's all on weak foundations, isn't it? Because imagine what would happen if every single person in the country decided they wasn't going to pay the mortgage for a month?
Exactly. And that's what we need, that's what we need.
Or pay any tax.
TV license or something, We saw that in Brazil, didn't we, recently, where the public just took to the streets and demonstrated and said, we're not putting up with these rises in public transport costs on the buses and such. Yeah, and the system had to reverse it because so many people were saying, well, we're not having it, so what are you going to do? What can they do?
And that's the real power, isn't it? That's the power we have. People voluntarily hand the power over.
Exactly. And a lot of people who are conspiratorially aware, shall we say, they completely accept that there's shadow people in secret societies that are running the show, and it's not governments that have real power, it's the banksters and all the bloody Illuminati types behind the banksters. A lot of people absolutely accept that, but I still feel they're quite negative in their outlook. And they say, oh, well, that's it really, we're all fucked, we're all doomed, that's it, they've got us, and, they're so powerful, there's nothing we can do. And when you start talking about raising vibrations and, positivity and all this sort of thing, they take that to be some new age kind of nonsense, and they just write it off and say, oh, you're talking bollocks, that stuff doesn't really work. Well, okay, what's your answer then? What's your answer? When you've identified this problem,
I think people are confused by but when people think like that, they think everything's going to be instant and it's going to be a change, click of the fingers change. But in my opinion, it's not. It's going to be a gradual transition.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Where you probably are going to feel a bit of hardship and a bit of pain because that's just the way it is.
But the starting point has to be somewhere, and I don't know about you, but I can bloody feel it. I can feel that things are different.
Yeah, definitely.
Things are so different now. Things are in the air, and I've felt it a lot in 2013. We had all this hype about 2012 and at the end of the Mayan calendar, New Age, all of that. But my God, the changes that I'm sensing in 2013, vibrationally, energetically, in terms of what's going on in the world, in terms of the awareness of people, it's incredible. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do, and it's not just, it's global, isn't it? It's there's so many different protests and rioting and just people on the streets, and it's in every country. And that says something's happening. People are feeling something.
Yeah, and like I say, you've got to start somewhere. And for a lot of people, all this Jimmy Savile business, the paedophilia exposures, that's been a wake-up call to a lot of people who previously would have just happily watched the BBC and, taken in the news every night. Just the fact that bloody demonic entity that was Savile was able to get away with what he did on BBC premises, licensed and paid for by us for 50 years, has caused a lot of people to kind of perk up and sit up and say, hang on a minute, what's going on? How's this been allowed to... This is the BBC. They're supposed to be a bastion of upstanding respectability. How can this go on? So that's caused a lot of people, I think, to question what they're told in the news and to question the surface gloss of everything and what might actually be going on behind the scenes. And that's good, because it's got to start somewhere. And I just wanted to mention this record, a house music record, which I came across recently. And I mention it because the lyrics absolutely blew me away. And you don't often get profound lyrics in house music records, but in this particular one you do. The track's called Raising Vibrations, and it's by Clever Keys, and it's some real profound wisdom. And the lyrics, you've got this female voice in it, and she's basically assigning a different vibrational frequency, in hertz presumably, to a range of emotions and states of mind. Right. And so the lyrics go, raise your vibration, the higher frequency will prevail if you allow it. What's your frequency? Raise your vibration, the higher frequency will remain if you choose it. And then she goes on to say 310, willingness, 350, acceptance, 400, reason, 500, love, 540, joy, 600, peace, 700 and above, enlightenment. And then later on in the track, she's talking about, this whole process of changing yourself. And she says, it's not always easy, just always worth it. One step is all it takes to start. One step higher is all it takes to grow. One step in front of the other to keep climbing. And, that pretty much says it all. So
that's what it is.
And if I'm talking rubbish, then whoever put that house music track together is talking rubbish as well, because there's a lot of us out there now that are talking about this stuff. There has to be some validity to it.
And that's what I mean. I don't blindly follow anyone. If I'm going to believe in something, I'll look into it myself and then make my own mind up.
Yeah.
I'll only take other people's views as a pointer of me looking into it myself. And so everything I say and everything I do, it's coming from me believing it myself, so I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first woke up to the conspiracy stuff, I guess you could say, the true picture of what's going on in the world and the fact that Barack Obama doesn't really have the power that everyone thinks he does, and neither does Cameron, and neither did Blair. Behind the scenes, they're just being puppeteered, and the real power is these individuals in their secret societies putting their robes on and bloody parading in front of 40-foot stone owls at Bohemian Grove every year and all the rest of it, performing their satanic rituals. Because they do, it's real, unfortunately.
That's going on now, isn't it? Is it this weekend, or...?
I believe it is, yeah. I realise it's not very convenient to have to acknowledge the fact that the people that are in control of this world perform satanic rituals and sacrifice children and all of that. I understand that it's amazing and fantastic for people to hear that, but unfortunately it's true. And when I first started hearing all this information from one or two sources, of course I questioned it as well, as you would. And I was like, well, this sounds fantastic to me. This can't be going on, surely. But the more you look into it and the more you investigate, you come across all these different sources and you realise it's not just one or two authors talking about it. There's a whole host of information and research available to you.
Yeah, it's already out there.
From authors and researchers all over the world, some of whom have been talking about it for decades. And then you go into ancient texts of, ancient civilizations that talk about demonic entities and archons and jinn and all the rest of it, and you come to realise that, my God, this stuff is actually real, and you have all this stuff validated. You should never put all your faith and trust in one particular author and researcher, but when you come across hundreds that are all coming to the same conclusion and validating the same information and confirming all the same stuff, then you can't deny it anymore. You have to go where the information takes you and where the truth takes you.
And what I'd say to people is they waste a lot of the time, which is what the majority of entertainment is for. now is to waste your time. Like, people will come home from work and they'll just sit in front of the TV all evening.
Yeah.
And I've not done that for years now. What I do is, any free time I've got, I'll read or look into things, because I'm constantly wanting to know more.
Yeah.
And I think people need to not be complacent and do that themselves, instead of, because what you're gaining from watching Coronation Street or whatever, it's just to distract your mind from
it seems such a waste.
The dull existence, basically.
We've got this incredible opportunity as humans, especially in these times, to just gather so much knowledge and have so many incredible experiences and just really raise our consciousness and just look into things and learn. And when people just waste it by going to the football week in, week out, or watching, there's some people, they just sit down in front of the TV, they don't even change the channel, they'll sit there for 4 or 5 hours and watch whatever comes on. And, Xbox gaming and all the rest of it. I'm not dismissing these activities entirely. They all have their uses. But if that's all you ever do with your life, and you never search and investigate and look into things, that to me is just an incredible waste of a human life.
And like you say, because it's unprecedented times, isn't it, really? Because there's never been access so easily to so much knowledge. Just at your fingertips. Just go online and, like, there's PDF books of old books for free, and there's websites. And even me talking to you now, like, via Skype, you can contact people that in days gone by you would never have had any connection with.
Exactly. There's good and bad in all things, and the internet certainly has its bad points. People always highlight the fact that with the advent of Facebook and Skype and Twitter and stuff, people are losing the ability to have social skills, face-to-face social skills, because you do everything via messaging and you never actually meet people face-to-face. That's maybe here or there, depending on your viewpoint. But looking at the positive aspects of the internet, it's incredible, as you say, how much information is now available to anyone that chooses to go there and research it. And I'm pretty sure that's not what the internet was initially intended for. I really feel this one has backfired on them, because in my view, the internet was designed initially as a tool of surveillance and control and suppression and information gathering for the system. And I really think they've screwed up because they never anticipated
how it developed. The
incredible ability of the internet to empower people and to actually give them access to information that they would prefer them not to have access to. Yeah,
because I say that too. It's the real chink in the armour, isn't it? Because without the internet, I'd still be the same as I was, and because people don't realise that information is very powerful. That if you're only getting your information from TV or the newspapers, then that's controlled information. You're only reading and knowing what they want you to know.
See, we're living in these times now of what some people call truth vibrations, which I think is a great way of describing it. There's an energetic shift. You could put it down to the end of one of the Mayan calendars and the start of another one if you choose. But either way, as we've said, there's amazing stuff going on energetically, that there are truth vibrations around. Vast numbers of people all over the world are tapping into it simultaneously and independently of each other. And to me, it's no accident and it's no coincidence that the advent of the internet has coincided with these incredible transformational times, because they wouldn't be going ahead to the extent that they are if it weren't for the power that the internet affords. Everything happens for a reason, and everything is pre-planned, I believe.
Yeah.
And the internet came along when it did because it was needed, and we're seeing that playing out now.
And people always say, what can we do? And I think people don't understand that they need to look inside themselves, do they?
Yeah.
Because I think each person will hold a different answer, if you know what I mean.
That's where the true power is.
Yeah.
People think, I can't make a change, I'm little me, I'm unimportant, how can I take on the might of the system? But like I was saying to you before, just imagine if one person who woke up, raised their consciousness, figured out what was going on, came to realization about their true self, their true nature, as an aspect of universal consciousness. We're all individual aspects of the one source, the one power, the one divinity, whatever label you want to put on it, consciousness, which is everywhere and makes up everything. Yeah. And so that means no one person is worth any more or any less than anyone else, and no one person's life has any less value or any more value than anyone else's. And when you realise that, you realise the incredible power that you have. And if each person that came to this realisation were to just talk to one other person, just one, in their life, and that person as a result came to that understanding about themselves and then passed it on to somebody else, each one teach one, imagine the transformational power of that. And the reality is you reach far more than just one person when you start speaking out about this stuff and you start putting information out there. The reality is you're probably reaching hundreds or thousands of people. And if each one of them then reached hundreds or thousands of people, that is the way that you change the world.
Yeah. Well, it's like your first talk was it in March this year?
Well, yeah, the first one I did was in September last year, but the first proper one was March this year, yeah.
Yeah, and I bet you've experienced a big change since then, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can look back at the talk I did in September last year in Latvia, and it just feels like absolute basic kid stuff. It feels like I'm in infant school, because I know so much more now than I did then, and I understand it so much, and I can put it across in so much of a better way. Yeah, I've grown so much since that time, and you never stop growing. You just keep growing spiritually and growing in terms of your knowledge once you start that process off. It's like the house record says, what is it? One step is all it takes to start. One step higher is all it takes to grow. And that is some truth right there. And again, I know a lot of people hearing this for the first time will think it's a load of spiritual New Age nonsense. Okay, what's your answer then? How are you going to dismantle this control system? What's your answer to what it's all about? Because I know this one works for me, and it works for a hell of a lot of other people as well, because it's the truth.
Yeah. And it does take courage to speak these things, because when I was thinking, do you know what I can do if I should leave my job or not? I was like, it's going to be a tough choice. And then on the other hand, I thought, well, it's not as tough as having to work here for the rest of my life and not say or do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that are aware of these things, but won't say anything. And that will change when they see that there's more people who are saying things, and they'll kind of say, well, he's saying it, so it'll give people courage to do it themselves, and then once it'll get to a critical mass then. Yeah. And when it's at a certain point, then that'll be...
Exactly, there's a tipping point, and once you go beyond it, there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
And all we need to do is reach that tipping point. You don't need the majority of the people in the world. You don't need 90% of the people in the world to wake up or raise their vibration or whatever. You just need a certain quota of people.
Yeah.
And that's probably quite a small percentage of the overall global population. But once you reach that tipping point, the power of positive consciousness and positive intent is so many thousands of times more powerful than the negative fear-based stuff that we're all living in. But once you reach that tipping point, there's no going back. And I can understand completely why maybe people that have sort of figured out a lot of this stuff and have realised the world is not what it seems are very reticent and reluctant to speak out, particularly when they've got corporate jobs and the job pays the bills, and they realise that if their boss were to get wind of them saying all this stuff, it might not bode too well for them in their job, and if they lost their job, they wouldn't be able to pay their bills, and so they keep it zipped and they keep it under their hat because of that. I can absolutely understand that. I can also understand why people don't talk to their friends and family about these things that they've come to realise, because you quite often get ridiculed for it. There's some people I don't speak to anymore as a result of it. They've taken great offence at stuff that I've talked about because it conflicts with their belief system so much. So I can understand why people don't speak out about it. But I tell you what, once you take the decision to speak your truth and say what you feel needs to be said without any worry or thought of what other people might think, it is the most liberating, empowering thing you can do.
It really is, because that fear of, well, what will such a person think or whatever, you have to remember, what does it even matter what they think?
exactly. If you live your life according to what other people might think of you, oh, I better not say this because they might think I'm a bit of a nutter. I better not do this because what would so-and-so think? Okay, what do these people do for you in exchange for you living your life for them? Oh, nothing. Yeah, so you're ceasing to be who you really are and expressing yourself freely and openly because you're worried about what other people might make of you, but you're getting nothing back from them in return. So why would you do it? In what way does it benefit you at all? It makes no sense. And, you cross a line where there's no turning back. And if you take the decision that I'm going to speak out about these things, you start doing it and then you can't go back because you can't take back the things you've said. And so you can only then progress and move forward. And it just takes being bold enough and brave enough and courageous enough to take that plunge.
And I think it's gonna come sooner than later because, like, there's a privatisation of the NHS now and the Royal Mail, and everyone's getting low pay. And this is going to be this low pay and the wealth gap that's increased. That's not going to go lower. That's going to go higher, if anything, unless people actually do something about it.
Well, it's going to provide a catalyst for a lot more people to freely speak out because they're not going to have a corporate job to worry about anymore.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think people should go crazy and go hating and things like that because people need to just be constructive with what they do.
Yeah.
Because that's all. There's two things in it. There's constructive or destructive motives, and at the minute, if you're supporting a system that's destructive, then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution, in my eyes.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I know it's difficult, particularly I think it's difficult for young people, because there's so much peer pressure. You want to fit in socially, you want to get on with your mates, and you want to pull the opposite sex and all the rest of it. And if you gain a reputation for being a conspiracy theorist or a bit of a nutter, that can harm your social life and, the fun that you have when you're young, and you should have fun when you're young. And then you look at middle-aged people that have got families and kids and mortgages, and you can understand why they find it difficult they don't want to rock the boat because they've got to keep the mortgage paid and keep the kids fed. But I tell you what, of all the people I know that have taken the step of not giving a shit what people think about what they want to say, and they've come out and said it anyway, I've never met one that regrets it. I've never met one person that says, oh, I wish I could go back to my old life. I really regret speaking out and saying the stuff that I do. It's caused so many problems for me. Not one. Everyone I've met that's done that is so grateful that they took that step.
Yeah, it's true that. I never thought of it that way, but it's true. I don't regret anything I've done.
Why would you ever want to go back? Why would you want to go back to a life of blindness and slavery and ignorance when you've discovered great truths? You know what I mean?
Because I think that's the biggest problem people have, that if people do examine their lives properly, they realise that it is actually quite hollow. And I think they're in denial about that, most people.
Well, what it is people don't like to acknowledge that they've been had.
Yeah.
They've been made a mug of. Who likes to admit they've been made a mug of? And this is why older people find it so difficult to get with these new ways of thinking. I fell out with an uncle, sadly, recently. And I also fell out with a promoter that had booked me for some club gigs before. And they're both in their 60s. And they'd both taken offence at stuff that I posted on Facebook. One was questioning the validity of the monarchy. Why is the Queen here? Why do we support this family? Why do we just put up with this? Yeah. Why is she sitting on trillions of pounds of wealth when there are people starving and going hungry and homeless? Not even in Africa, but in the UK, there's people that can't afford to live. And all this vast wealth that she's sitting on could be used to eradicate all of that. Why are taxpayers supporting this family? Who are they? And so I put something up about that, and this old guy took great offence at it and thought I was some sort of anarchist for even suggesting these things. And then, an uncle, I put something up about 9/11, and this uncle seems to accept the official story, and so he didn't like the fact that I was raising questions about it. And I realised that what it is with both of these guys is they're in their 60s, and they've lived an entire life of being programmed and conditioned and lied to. And they don't want to acknowledge that they've spent all this time being made a mug of, because then they have to revise their whole world view of what life is all about and who they are and how they fit into it. And people of that age generally just don't want to go there. And they get very, very defensive when people, confront them with that sort of information. They'll do anything to defend the official version of events.
That's another thing I don't understand. Like, why is it that some people, if they get a view, that conflicts with theirs, that they get so offended and so irate about it? Why is that, do you think?
They get so angry. They start getting abusive then, and they start calling you names, and they start defriending you and blocking you because they don't want to hear it. They'll do anything to defend their worldview because they don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to admit that they've been duped and lied to. Well, I don't like admitting that I've been duped and lied to, and I don't like being made a mug of. And that's the reason why I'm not taking any more of the bloody crap that is spouted out by the mainstream news. And I don't believe a bloody word that the government tells you, and I don't fall for this crap anymore. Because I'm not going to be made a mug of anymore. It's bad enough that I spent all my life up to sort of 5 years ago being made a mug of, but I'm not having it anymore. And it's never too late. Who cares if you're 65 and you realise you've spent your whole life being lied to? Are you going to spend what years you've got left being lied to as well? Or are you going to say, my God, I never saw this before, but I can see it now? Yeah.
And I think another, to be fair to these people, it's only become quite apparent, hasn't it, recently, because of things like the internet, where the information's become available, because before that it was so well hidden and concealed.
Yeah. Yeah, you used to have to go to libraries and wade through great volumes of books to get your information. Now you can do it in your house, whoever you are, any time.
So there's no excuse not to do it.
Well, there isn't, and it'll be interesting to see the generational shift that happens in the next 20 or 30 years when the older folk are no longer with us, and we've just got young people coming up, and they'll be getting used to the internet from the day they're born. My 4-year-old daughter is so good with the laptop and the internet that she's starting to teach me things about it. And that's what we're going to have, a whole generation that are absolutely tuned in to using the internet to seek out information. And they're not going to fall for all the bullshit and lies that the mainstream feeds you, anywhere near as much as my generation did. And so imagine the effect of that in 20 or 30 years, when the world is populated by switched on, smart individuals that have had an alternative view of the world and themselves from the minute they were born.
It's going to be incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
And like you say, the generational thing there, that's the big problem at the minute. I read I forgot what paper it was in now, but there's an article, and it was, about the baby boomer generation.
Yeah.
And how they've got so much wealth now. And it's against, like, my generation of young people, where there's a lot of people unemployed or, in dead-end jobs. And there's a big, on the balance of wealth, it's like, that scale's off the roof, off the chart.
Yeah.
They've got all the wealth, basically. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I just think as humanity progresses, we're going to see some incredible changes that we can't even conceive of now. And this will be a few generations into the future, I'm sure. But if this consciousness keeps on being raised, and people pull their kind of positive intent and their vibrational frequencies to overwrite this reality and this control system with a new way of doing things, then the way that's going to manifest and play out into the physical reality of life is going to be incredible.
Yeah, because that's the thing for me that I really try to get people to understand, is that we could be basically on the verge of like a paradise.
Yeah.
Imagine it if because at the minute 90% of people's puzzles, they're all man-made. They could be done away with just a simple shift of thinking.
And a lot of them are money related as well. They're rooted in finance. And we could have a global civilization that doesn't have money. It is possible. I know people can't get their heads around that because they've been conditioned to rely on money so much all their lives. But, human civilization didn't used to print banknotes and have coins. And they used to survive. They used to go forward from one generation to another. You know, there's bartering, there's methods of exchange, there's mutual cooperation. It just requires the right attitude and the right mindset and the right consciousness. But, you know, there's no reason why in the future money doesn't have to exist. And all these bankers that are making colossal fortunes off of people on money that doesn't exist, interest that is an illusion and a fabrication, we'll have no future. And also, we don't need a society with a royal family either. We can survive without it, people.
If you ask people, what is money, this thing that they dedicate the whole of their lives to, most of the people, they don't even know what it is or how it actually works.
Yeah, well, they think if you mint off a pound coin in the Royal Mint, then there you are. That's a pound that's gone out into circulation. It's worth a pound, exactly a pound. But it's not, because money always comes with debt attached.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pound plus debt, which means the originators of the money, which is not the government, it's the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve or all these other privately owned banking cartels, require that money to be repaid plus debt. So it's a pound plus debt. Where is the additional money to pay off the debt supposed to come from? Well, they could put some more money into the system to pay off the debt, but then that money comes with a debt of its own. So there's even more debt. And there's never enough money to pay off the debt. That's the insanity of the financial situation.
Yeah, and what people don't realise is that there's people that become incredibly wealthy off that, whilst the majority of people suffer.
Yeah. Basically. The statistics are grotesque. You know, like 1% of the global population sitting on 90-odd% of the wealth. It's absolutely insane. How are we falling for this? Also, to go back to the royals again, it's a bit of a hobby horse of mine, you know, but you say you ask people what is money. Ask people, what is royalty? What is a royal? What does royal actually mean? Can you define that? Because I actually can't. If somebody said, what does royal mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean? What does it mean? Can't. You know, it refers to kings and queens, but who are they? Why are they there? Why are they special? Why? Why do they get palaces and all this wealth and crowns and stuff, and the rest of us have to go to work every day and, you know, get on the train and grind away every day? And
the answer you usually get is, what is the Queen?
Yes, but who is she? Who is she? Do you know her personally? You know, how did she get there? How can she be the Queen and you can't?
It's odd, isn't it? It's very bizarre.
Yeah, people can't answer that. But we just put up with this institution called royalty. We put up with it, and we fund it, and we slave away to help support it. What the hell are we doing?
No, it's true.
You need to question these things, because you spend your life at school and college and university and watching the evening news and listening to government ministers, and you just accept certain things. Well, she's the Queen, and, well, you've got to pay tax, haven't you? You know, you've got to go to work. But
that's the way things are.
But why? Why is it the way things are? You know, people.
No, it's true.
When you start to question these things, it just shatters your whole world and opens up a whole world of possibility to you. Just because something's always been done a certain way, it doesn't mean it has to continue being done that way. You can change things, and we need to.
And the good, it spurs me on, you know, when I make decisions, is the way people are living their lives now. How will they feel when they're old? Will they feel fulfilled, or will they feel like they've just wasted a whole lifetime?
Exactly. Well, what I think of, and what I believe, is that when you croak your last breath in this mortal coil, I've come to understand, and it's my firm belief, that you basically go back to where you came from, because we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spirits having a human experience.
Yeah.
You know, we are everything. We're an aspect of universal consciousness, and we don't actually die. And so when you leave this physical body, you go back to the source that you came from. And I believe, and this is backed up by people that have had near-death experiences and ancient texts from around the world and all of that, that you come to understand everything. In fact, you've always understood everything. It's just when you're born into this physical reality, you forget. And you have the opportunity in your human lifetime to rediscover things, following the clues, following the trail of information. And you have the choice of whether you go down that route or whether you live a life of ignorance. And I believe that when you cross back over to where you came from, you have, well, you review your life. You review the life that you've just lived as a human.
And the choices you made.
And you weigh up, you look at the choices you've made, the experiences you have, the effect you had on other people. And can you imagine having that life review and realising you spent your whole life going to work, paying taxes, watching Coronation Street of an evening, going down the pub, watching the football, saluting the Queen when she comes on telly at Christmas, and that's it. That's it. That was your life.
When there's so much more to an offer.
Imagine that. Can you imagine? Can you imagine looking back and you're like, oh dear.
And that's what people don't understand, isn't it? There's so much. It's a whole wide world.
Yeah.
People say there's no options when the options are limitless, aren't they?
Well, they are.
It's what you choose to do.
They are. I also believe, I mean, this is real deep subject area, and there's many other people that could explain this better than me because they've looked into it such a lot, and to a certain extent you just have to go with your instincts and what resonates with you. I also believe there's an aspect of, before you come here and you incarnate into physical form into this world, you make some decisions as to the sort of person you're going to be. You basically decide who you're going to be and where you're going to live and who you're going to be born to and the sort of the basic structure of your life.
Yeah.
But then when you're born, you've got the opportunity to deviate from that and go down different paths. But the basic structure of your life is something that's predetermined. And I believe that there are some spirit souls that have made the decision before they come here to live a life of ignorance. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, and they might say, well, why would you choose that? If you've got that higher knowledge before you come here, why would you choose to be an unthinking drone? Well, it's all part of the experience, I guess. It's all part of the physical human experience, and universal consciousness wants to experience everything. It wants to know what it's like to be a human that's fully aware and alert and having an amazing spiritual life, but it also wants to know what the experience is like of being brain dead. And so it chooses to manifest into those sort of lives, so it can have every type of experience that is possible to have, and then take that experience back to source when it goes back and pool it, so you've got this vast resource of every type of experience possible.
Is there any books or documentaries that you would recommend that people watch?
In that particular subject area, there's none that immediately spring to mind, but there might be afterwards, in which case we can put it in the notes. Yeah.
The one for me is, have you read Autobiography of a Yogi?
No.
That's a good book. I forgot, I can't pronounce the name of the guy who it's about because he's Indian. But that's a real good book, that.
Not the guy that trained the Beatles?
No, it is, I forgot what it's called. It's got a funny name, but it's called The Autobiography of a Yogi, and just the ideas, that are in the book. Whether you choose to believe it or not, it's still interesting to read.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, you should definitely look out for it. There's free PDFs online. That's the best thing I think about most of these old books. You can find them for free anyway. So buy yourself a Kindle and it's away you go.
Yep. Sure.
But yeah. Struggling with things to say now.
Yeah, no worries.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, we can bring it back to the music, if you like. Kind of go full circle. One thing that I've noticed in what is laughingly referred to as hip-hop these days, which, if it had been passed off as hip-hop 20 years ago, would have had people being laughed out of town and never working again.
Yeah.
Lil Wayne. Imagine if Lil Wayne had come out in the era of the Native Tongues, when De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest and, Moni Love and Queen Latifah were out doing their thing, for instance, and along comes this rapper Lil Wayne doing the sort of music he's doing now. He would get laughed and ridiculed and pilloried. People would say, "Are you taking the piss? What the hell is this?" And yet here we are in 2013 and he's putting out this absolute toxic garbage. And people are going, "Yeah, man, yeah, Lil Wayne's a good rapper, man, yeah, this is hip-hop, man." Absolutely unbelievable.
There's a photograph online, I forgot exactly what it says, but it goes along the lines of, if Tupac and all them was still around, he'd be working at McDonald's, which is basically true, isn't it?
Well, Tupac would probably be making records with Miley Cyrus, and Notorious B.I.G. would be on Katy Perry records, like bloody Snoop Dogg is, you know.
Oh yeah, imagine that. God, that'd be terrible.
Well, it probably would. It's the sad truth, you know. If they carried on doing their thing, they would be making all this garbage pop rubbish now, like everyone else. Well, maybe Tupac, because Tupac was kind of a bit alert, and maybe he would have become a real revolutionary, like Professor Griff out of Public Enemy did.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Biggie, especially if you had Puffy still controlling him. But anyway, I've been taking a great interest in some of the references to the Illuminati that have been creeping into rap records, so-called.
Yeah.
And you're hearing them all the time now. And they've become sort of the new Scarface, the new Tony Montana, or the new Don Corleone, the Godfather, you know.
Yeah.
You used to get references to Scarface and all these gangsters on rap records, and now they're referencing the Illuminati, like it's this really cool sort of mafioso type secret society, and it's all kind of seductive and secretive, and they're putting it into lyrics. And there's one lyric on the new record by J. Cole, who is the new protege of Jay-Z, so controlled by Jay-Z, basically, or all those that controls it, Jay-Z. And it's from his Born Sinner album. The track's called Villuminati. And the lyric that got my attention was, these next 3 bars is dedicated to the retards, keep on asking me about the Illuminati. Young black millionaire, old white billionaires, I'm sure they could do without me. I ain't really into sacrificing human bodies. So, we've crossed a line with that sort of lyric getting into rap records. There's an acknowledgement of the fact that people are talking about this society called the Illuminati. There's an acknowledgement that they're into human sacrifice. So they seem to feel the need to address it now because so many people are talking about it. And so they think if they address it and they call people retards that accuse them of being associated with all this stuff, that's their way of deflecting it. And then he goes on to say, was on track for the first 2 years, then I let the devil steer, and now we're halfway here. Then on Jay-Z's new album, Magna Carta Holy Grail, you've got the track Heaven, and there's a lyric in there that goes, conspiracy theorists screaming Illuminati. They can't believe this much skill is in the human body. You all dwell on devil shit. I'm in the Diablo. Blah, blah, blah. Fresh in my Easter clothes, feeling like Jesus. A few years ago, Kanye West tweeted, I've got a question. What exactly is the Illuminati? And are rappers allowed? LOL. The following year, on Rihanna's Diamonds remix, one of his lyrics goes, Illuminati, high society. So I guess he's discovered who they are. He's answered his own question there.
Yeah.
And then on Black Skinhead, on the Yeezus album, which is a real piece of work, that album. Could do a whole bloody podcast on that alone. Oh, I have. I actually have. He says, they say I'm possessed, that's the omen. So, it couldn't become more obvious now what they're doing. And, anyone that still can't see this is just in terminal denial because they're referencing the Illuminati. They're talking about demonic possession and stuff in the lyrics. And people will say, oh, it's just rap lyrics, what's wrong with you? They're just saying it to be controversial and to get noticed. Really? Yeah? What? Time and time again, yeah? All these different artists. Illuminati popping up everywhere. It's just controversial, yeah? Okay.
Do you ever go on the website, Vigilant Citizen?
Oh, all the time, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good website for things like that.
Yeah, totally.
But it's like you say, because even the lyrics now, they don't talk about life, do they?
No, they don't.
It's not about anything that you or me could relate to.
No, it's about how much gold you've got and how much champagne you drink, how much money you got in the bank, girls with fat asses, what size the rims are on your Maybach. It's nothing that regular people can relate to. It's all bullshit, and it's not going to assist you in any way, people. It's not going to help you in your lives. And not only that, I just believe that there's frequencies at which these records are recorded which are dissonant and discordant and are designed to make you feel not good. They speak to the subliminal mind, so you're not aware that it's happening, but they actually dictate your mood and the way you think and what you feel about yourself and your place in the world. And they can do this, as I say, subconsciously through the way the records sound. Listen to Lil Wayne, Love Me, or Ace Hood, Bugatti, which are 2 good examples. I can't listen to those records because they just make me feel uneasy. There's just something about the whole way that they sound. It's like nails going down a blackboard or a dentist drill or something. They just sound horrible to me. That's before you even get into the lyrics. That's just the way the track sounds. And what's acceptable these days? You know, what's acceptable lyrics? I know I start sounding like a preacher here, Sunday preacher. I'm not religious at all, but I do have morals, and I do have kids as well, and I worry about the sort of stuff that is considered normal and acceptable. You have radio edits now of tracks, and they take the word fuck and they turn it into fur, or they either like slow it down so it goes fur, or they take out the middle syllable. So instead of fuck, you hear like that's supposed to be okay.
Yeah.
You hear motherfucker, and that's okay. You know, motherfucker is offensive, but motherfucker is fine.
Yeah.
That's a radio edit. And, you know, I'm on my shoe. Oh, I wonder what that word was. You know,
it shouldn't be there.
It's acceptable just because they've done that to it. It's unbelievable. And you got rappers, whatever she is, like Nicki Minaj, saying things like kiss my arse and my anus because they're finally famous. Little girls singing this. Come on now.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Come on, what's wrong with you?
It's just...
Who wants their 13-year-old daughter saying things like that? Not me.
Well, I've got a little sister and she's always watching the Disney Channel and I'm always going mad. Yeah. Because it's mindless. It's not... she just sits there and watches it and it's not educational, it's not
It's full of subliminal messages as well.
Yeah, it's teaching kids this is how you should be, and it's not how you should be at all. It's the complete opposite of what you should be.
It is. And, you know, listening to this music, so-called rap and R&B now, is dictating to young people a whole way of living and a whole lifestyle which is not designed for their benefit. It's not designed with their best interests in mind. It just teaches you that it's great to get drunk. It's great to spend money you don't have. It's great to have brands and all the latest technology and iPods and iPads and God knows what else. It's great to show off your jewellery. It's great to have promiscuous sex with whoever. And that's about it, really. That's it. No reference to anything vaguely self-empowering or anything spiritual or anything about discovering your true potential and your true place in the world. Just all of that bullshit, really. And
like you said earlier,
and sounding horrible as well. Sorry.
Like you said earlier, once if there's someone in that age group that goes against it, then they're outcast a little bit, and people are peer pressure keeps people in the place, doesn't it?
But those that do, I've got so much admiration for young people that are prepared to step out of their peer group and say, well, you know, I don't want to be a part of this music. I don't like this scene. I don't want to dress this way. I'm an individual. I can think for myself. I'm not interested in being a part of the crowd. Any young person, teenage, early 20s, that has got the balls to do that, absolute respect, absolute admiration. That's true courage. Because you will stand alone, but you'll never regret it. Like I said earlier, I've never met anyone that says, oh, I wish I could go back to being part of the crowd. I wish I could be a sheep again.
And the more people do it, the better it will be.
Yeah, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You know, they can't stop it. Might not be in your or my lifetime, but it's going to happen in a major way in the coming generations.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah. Well, we might have to come back and see it.
Hopefully. Better place to be.
Yeah.
What was that song that you said earlier?
What, the house record?
Yeah.
It's called Raising Vibrations by Clever Keys. I can send it to you.
Yeah, send it me. I'd like to listen to that.
I'll send you the MP3.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. I think we've covered everything.
Well, we covered a lot. Yeah, it's been a good one, actually. Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Have you?
Yeah. I didn't know where we were going to go with it, but we've gone all over the place.
Yeah, and I'll edit it a bit, so it's like... I don't think it'll need much editing, to be honest. But
doesn't really, no. Just join the two bits together.
Yeah, and then it should be a good show, that.
I think so, yeah.
Maybe
you just want to finish on what people can do and something inspirational, because a criticism I've had a few times is, oh yeah, I see you highlighting all this Illuminati stuff and what's going on in the world and how messed up it all is, but what's the point of doing that if you don't offer solutions and positive things? And I always try and do that, so we could just end on that if you like.
Yeah, we'll do that. So what do you think then? What would your, not the answers be, but what do you think?
Well, it's all about stuff that we've already talked about, really. Raising your personal vibration, not being afraid to stand out from the crowd. But if we're talking specifics when it comes to the music, if people do agree that the music that's being fed to us right now is garbage, then don't swallow it. Don't take it. You don't have to. There is great music still being made out there. There's great empowering music. I've featured a whole load of it on my podcasts. When the People's Voice launches in November, the David Icke Project, which I'm going to be a part of, I'm going to be featuring a whole load of music from mainly rap artists that are putting out music that bucks the trend, that talks about things we need to know about, and is as far away from all the toxic, corporate, poisonous garbage from Lil Wayne and all the rest that you could get. Yeah. So you don't have to swallow all this crap that the record companies are feeding you. You don't have to support these artists. You can go your own way. You can seek out artists that make the sort of music you actually want to hear. And you can send a message back to the record companies by saying, we don't want this. These artists ain't good enough.
Yeah, because that's the thing, innit? People, they only make it because people buy it. If no one bought it.
Unfortunately, so many people are still just so prone to taking whatever's fed to them, you know. Whether it's a TV program, the corporations will say, hey, this is the next big thing, there's this great TV program. And people are like, well, it must be good because they say it's the next big thing. Well, they're going to say that, aren't they? And the same with artists. You know, here's a new rapper, he's great. Oh, well, yeah, he's really good because I've been told he is. Well, what do you think?
They knew.
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Is he good, you know? Do you think he's a good thing, or are you just saying that because you've been told he is? So be discerning, you know, make your own choices, and don't be afraid to walk away from something and disassociate with it if it's not what you want. We have the power, and if only people would see that, like we were saying earlier, people don't like paying the BBC TV licence since the Savile scandal. Just imagine, if everyone said, well, we're not supporting this disgusting, disgraceful organisation anymore, den of paedophiles. We're not doing it, liars, you know. We're not paying the TV licence. I'm not paying. My next door neighbour's not paying. My uncle's not paying. My mum and dad aren't paying. What could they do? What could they do? What, shut down everyone's TV?
I had a friend that didn't pay. And it's quite funny, actually, because he got a letter, you know, from the TV licensing.
Yeah.
Saying, we've noticed you've not paid. And it made me laugh. I thought, well, they've noticed you've not paid within a couple of weeks. But Jimmy Savile didn't notice him for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I guess they've discovered vigilance.
Yes.
But imagine...
They know you've not paid in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the entire nation says, we're not paying. What are you going to do?
There's nothing they could do, they're powerless. And people...
What are they going to do?
Another thing that people underestimate, in my opinion, is like, they say, well, they'd send me to jail, you know, and all that. But the court infrastructure is weak. It's overrun anyway, so they wouldn't be able to process that many people, even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Not if everyone stood together. Not if
Yeah.
everyone stood together, and that's what it needs, unity. But people are just too concerned about their own individual circumstances, aren't they? They're thinking, well, I don't like paying the TV licence, but if I didn't, I don't really want the boat rocked, I don't want to have to go to court and stuff. But if everyone did it,